Super Saturday is done. The regular season in the Gallagher Premiership is over. We know who the top 4 teams will be. We know what the semi-finals will be in a fortnight's time. And I'm going to attempt, as best I can, to tell the story of Super Saturday as it happened. Which, well, basically is telling the story of me sitting on my sofa, flicking between the games, trying to keep on top of what was happening, what the storylines were, and what it meant for everyone else. Really exciting to watch. There's a bit of me that just wishes I could have watched every single game and digested it, but that's not the way it's done, and I understand why. No one wants to be given an advantage. I guess if you just agreed what the fixtures would be and what the kickoffs would be at the start of the season, no one could have any complaints. I don't know, that's a question. Would you rather have staggered kickoffs? And is there a fair way of doing it? Like I say, announcing the final round of games and the kickoff times at the start of the season so everyone knows ahead of time? Or do you prefer to have every game kicking off at the same time and that situation where you're not quite sure what's happening and the picture's changing all the time? I can see the positives and negatives of both. I'd be interested to know what you think, and it does help as well. If you drop a comment down below, if you give the video a thumbs up, helps me spread the word. And I honestly, this season in the Premiership, in the URC, in the top 14, it's been brilliant. I want club rugby to be more popular, so help me spread the word. But the situation before we came in was that the top 4 was Northampton, Saracens, Bath, Sale, and Sale knew if they beat Saracens at Saracens, that would continue to be the top 4, with the only other thing, Bath knew they had to get something, at least a couple of bonus points against Northampton, and then that would wrap up who the top 4 is. But looking from the outside, Exeter Chiefs, if they won away at Leicester, they were in the best place to capitalise if Bath or Sale slip up, and Bristol and Harlequins played each other, so one of those teams was going to get at least 4 points, you would think, and again be in a position to capitalise if Leicester beat Exeter and if Sale or Bath slipped up. We now know the semi-finals, spoiler alert, it is going to be Northampton Saints finishing top against Saracens, who finished 4th, because Sale beat Saracens away, and they will go away to Bath, who bagged themselves a home semi-final by beating Northampton handsomely at home. That's how it finished, but now the story of how it happened. And I don't know, what game did you watch? I was watching, mainly in the first half, or at least for the first half an hour, Leicester against Exeter, because I was thinking maybe there's a reasonable chance that Saracens win at home against Sale. They don't lose at the Stonex very much. Sale haven't won away at Saracens in 20 years in the Premiership. So that was my thinking. Exeter are in the best position to capitalise. Let's see how they get on against Leicester. Well, Exeter got out to an early lead. Manny Faye-Waboso scored a try. But then, really, it was all Leicester. They dominated physically. They dominated territorially. They just got the better of Exeter's blitz defence. They were cutting through or getting round the outside. Finally, we saw a performance from Leicester that felt like Leicester. It felt like a performance that matched the names that were on the team sheet, with guys like Jasper Wiese playing his final game, Andre Pollard. You've got a couple of World Cup winners there in your starting lineup. You've got the Argentina captain. You've got England players all over the shop. And finally, we saw a performance that befitted the stature of the players that they have, and they got themselves to a 20 points to 10 lead. Ollie Hassel-Collins, a name that you haven't heard very much of this season. Think back a year or so ago, he was starting for England in the Six Nations 2023. Hasn't really been heard of since. There's talk about him maybe going and playing for Wales soon. He scored a fantastic try, in-out score. And Jack Van Portfleet, another guy who due to injury missed out on the World Cup, and now he's on the outside looking in. He made a bit of a point with a good try as well. So really good performance from Leicester. Exeter just did not manage to get any possession. 2 yellow cards as well. One for Ollie Woodburn, one for Faye-Waboso, both for deliberate knock-ons. And as I say, their forward run has been neutralised by Leicester's defence, and Leicester getting on top of Exeter's blitz defence. It's risk-reward, but there was not enough reward for the risk because Leicester got the better of them. So there you go, 20 points to 10. They were up at half-time. The opening at the Stonex was cagey as you like. It was 0-0 between Saracens and Sale for 15 minutes. So Exeter knew, hold on, we've got to turn this around against Leicester. And equally, Bristol and Quins knew that there was an opportunity here. Exeter are losing, and it's close at the Stonex. Meanwhile, no points at Saracens, all the points at Harlequins, 5 tries. It's like a game of tennis. Try for Bristol, try for Quins, try for Bristol, try for Quins. James Williams, then Chandler Cunningham South, Genge, Dombrandt, Ibitoye. 3 tries to 2 to Bristol, 21 points to 14. And that was only 25 minutes on the clock. And Bristol knew they had to score 5 points, get the bonus point, keep Quins from getting a losing bonus point, and they'd have done everything that they could. And they were on track as it stood. But Sale got on top at Saracens. They got the try there. And 10 points to 3 they were up at half time. It was, I'm trying to remember the try now. I know they could have had a try from Luke Cowan-Dickey, couldn't they? But he dropped it over the line. I've completely brain farted who actually scored Sale's try in that first half. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. They were on top. As I was bouncing between the channels, what I was seeing, and this is what continued. So, half-time. Let me just run through the half-time scores. Saracens 3, Sale 10. KG, as you like. Quins 14, Bristol 21. So Bristol looking like they could take advantage if Saracens make a comeback. Exeter looking like their season could be done unless they turn things around at Leicester. And of course, it was first v third at the Rec, where a much changed Northampton team was 17 points to 5 down. And really, it was all Bath. The bits I saw, the scoreline probably didn't reflect how dominant Bath were. And it's a credit to Northampton's tenacity that they managed to hang in there. And only 12 points down at half-time. James Ram scoring a good try. That they have that in their locker. So that's how it sat at half-time. It was looking like, well, Bath are on track to win. So Northampton and Bath don't really need to watch that one too much. Exeter are losing at Leicester, and Leicester are looking really good, so I'm not going to focus as much on that one. What you really need to watch is what is happening at Bristol v Quins, Bristol at Quins, and more importantly, what is happening at the Stonex. Can Saracens turn this around? Can the champions, in a rematch of last year's final, get the better of Sale, the visitors, who haven't won there for 20 years? Marco Riccioni came on at half-time to try and solidify their scrum, but he couldn't give them a platform. And the story of this game, in fairness, was that Ben Curry and Sam Dugdale were all over Saracens. They're scavenging on the floor, the defensive shots that were coming in from the whole Sale team, in fact, and the scrum was getting on top, the set piece. Sale just had an all-round game, and Saracens were rattled. And there were very, very good players having uncharacteristically poor games. Owen Farrell knocking on a bunch of times. Same goes Ben Earl, did not look like Ben Earl. Gonzalez suddenly looked anonymous in the back row for Saracens. Elliot Daly. So like players of real experience. And I put all the credit for that, rather than criticising any Saracens player. That's credit to Sale, who did their homework and knew when they absolutely had to win, they delivered. And that will give them so much confidence because, they got the luck. They got the bounce of the ball, and you need a little bit of luck, and they earned it, really. Rob Dupree try was a speculative kick over the top, a wicked bounce of the ball. Rugby balls do that. Rob Dupree threw under the posts, 20 points to 3. Sale went up, and it was looking like, well, Saracens are staring right down the barrel now. And just casting my eye elsewhere while this was going on, Sale were opening up a lead. Leicester put Exeter to the sword. Raffel scored. Mike Brown scored. Montoya probably should have scored as well. But 34 points to 10. The game was really over. Exeter, their great season, but theirs was done. Leicester, poor season, but they finished strongly. So kind of park that game for the time being. So could Saracens come back? Could Quins or Bristol take advantage if they do? And meanwhile, what was going on at the Rec is Bath were just taking the game away from Northampton. That game was pretty much done as well. So I forgot about that one. It was all about the Stonex, and it was all about the Stoop. And weirdly, Harlequins were wanting their bitter London rivals, Saracens, to do them a favour. Quins fans were cheering on Saracens. That's the only time. This is the only time that will ever happen. And at the Stoop, it was topsy-turvy again. Harry Thacker opened up a 12-point lead with a try just after half-time, but then 2 tries from Northmoor, Cunningham South for Quins meant that they took the lead, 28 points to 26, but then a penalty meant it was 28-29 to Bristol. And so it was on a knife edge there. And meanwhile, at the Stonex, Theo McFarlane, Theo Dan came on and turned things around for Saracens. They scored a try. It was a 10-point game with 12 minutes to play. There was light at the end of the tunnel for Bristol and Harlequins, although truthfully, it was light at the end of the tunnel for Bristol because they put the foot on the accelerator, started ratcheting things up and finished the strongest, dominated that match. Northampton were getting dominated, Exeter were getting dominated, although Jasper Wiese did get a red card and Exeter scored a try, so brought it back to 12 points, but the game was pretty much done. So there you go, it was all on Saracens. Could they continue this comeback? 10 points behind, and the simple answer is no, they couldn't, because it finished 20 points to 10. And Sale are very happy that they are semi-finalists once again, which is a fantastic result for them, you have to say. And they have kind of snuck in out of nowhere. You go back a couple of months and you were looking at the table thinking Sale are out, but they have finished so strongly this season. And on the strength of the performance against Saracens, they are a force to be reckoned with. Tom Curry is back in training. Ben Curry was outstanding. Sam Dugdale was brilliant. They've got Dan Dupree that is out as well. So they're not even at full strength and they're starting to hit top form. And absolutely when they had to. Meanwhile, with Saracens, what kind of a psychological blow will that defeat at home be? Because Owen Farrell, Mako Vunipola and co, they would not have been thinking they were going to be playing their final game for Saracens today. They were probably thinking in the back of their mind, we'll win today and our final home game will be in 2 weeks' time in a semi-final. As it is, they're now travelling to top of the table Northampton Saints in a much, much tougher task for them. Psychologically, what could that do? Fantastic for Sale. Question marks with Saracens. Equally, at the Rec, talk about confidence. 43 points to 12. And that man, Ben Spencer, brilliant interception try. He's been great all season. He and Finn Russell, what a half-back combo. And they finish second. They get themselves a home semi-final. And the Rec, which was bouncing today, is going to be absolutely bouncing in a couple of weeks' time. That is huge. And, well, Sale have got to go to the Rec. And that is 2 meaty packs going up against each other. Finn Russell against George Ford. There's storylines all over the park. That is going to be something else. But Bath absolutely hammered Northampton. Yes, Northampton have made a load of changes. There were loads of comments in the video when I previewed this yesterday telling me, don't talk Northampton down so much. They've still got loads of good players. Yes, they did. But they got absolutely hammered by Bath. And I wonder what that does for Northampton. Tell me what you think. Does that psychologically harm Northampton Saints? Yes, they finished top. Yes, they earned the right to drop some players. But there's no game next weekend. There's 2 weeks until the next match. Meaning it will be 3 weeks between games for many of Northampton's players. Is that a good thing? We saw this with Leicester last year. They will probably look back on the Champions Cup and the URC and think maybe they rested up players too much. Are Northampton doing the same thing here? I think there's a chance that that is the case. What time will tell, but is it something which backfired? I think that may arguably be the case. Northampton, who were absolutely buzzing, and now going into a semi-final off the back of a pasting by one of the other rivals in the top 4. I'm not sure psychologically that's the best move, but this game ended up being irrelevant. But look at that scoreline. Harlequins 28, Bristol 53. The floodgates opened towards the end of that game. 5th place for Bristol. I think they'll have to look at that as a decent season for them. Obviously, all of the teams that missed out on the playoffs will be disappointed. But Bristol, I think they've got more credit in the bank They got back to their Bristol identity. They started playing how they like to play, and when the tracks got flat and the conditions got good, they are almost unplayable at times, and they were today against Quins. But conversely, decent season for Bristol, although disappointed not to make top 4. Quins, that's really poor, isn't it? 7th place for Harlequins is not good enough. With the names in that squad, with the money that they spend, it's just not good enough. Danny Kerr said as much in the week. And that is a poor, poor end to a season which has had some highs. Think about the win away in Bordeaux in the Champions Cup, getting to a semi-final there. But ultimately, a poor season in the Premiership. 7th place. Yes, they'll be in the Champions Cup, but they're going to be up against some of the best teams around in that as well. So they're going to have their work cut out, and they've got work to do. What do you think? Comments down below. As I say, let me know. And at Welford Road, 40 points to 22. Finally, we saw a performance from Leicester which matched the names on the team sheet. International class on the field. International class in terms of some of the performances. Equally, Exeter Chiefs well beaten today. No complaints there. But to have got to the situation where, I think they finished 6th, and they got into a position where they had something riding on the last game. They could have made it to the playoffs on the last day. I think that represents a really positive season for Exeter Chiefs, who've got such a young squad in a rebuilding process. If rumours are to be believed, they're operating well under the salary cap, and they're going to be able to keep this young team together. And with Rob Baxter at the helm, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the years ahead. Leicester Tigers finally bared their teeth. That's the sort of performance that the fans at Welford Road, the faithful there, have come to expect. And that is a foundation that they can build on next season and put right what was a really poor year for them in the Premiership. And there we go. We know our top 4. I think... Oh yeah, another game happened. Gloucester beat Newcastle, who ended with 18 defeats out of 18. And Gloucester fans got to say goodbye to Johnny May and a few others as well. So that game also happened, but it wasn't a factor on the top 4. Nor, as it were the games at the Stoop or at Welford Road, in fairness, because Sale is the story of the day. They are in the top 4. They finished 3rd. They travel to Bath, who've got themselves a home semi-final. Psychologically, the impact of these games today could be massive in a fortnight's time. We get to take a breath, focus on the Champions Cup, and for the rest of this evening, I'm going to be focusing back on the URC. There's some pretty significant games going on there. So keep checking back on the channel. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave your comment. See you on the next one.